Hello, and welcome to Space Science Before Sleep. If our home planet could speak in a whisper, what gentle story would it tell you as you begin to drift off? If you have had a long day, if your mind feels busy or a little too bright, let this be a small, quiet place for you. You have got nothing to do but rest. Let your breathing slow just a little, and let your shoulders soften as if they have been holding something heavy without you noticing. If it helps, imagine your body becoming a touch lighter with each steady exhale, as though gravity has grown kinder for the night. Tonight we are drifting through the calm wonders of life on Earth. Not with urgency, not with alarms, but with the soft curiosity that makes it easier to let go. We will move through oceans and forests, through hidden worlds beneath our feet and invisible forces in the air, and we will do it slowly, as if we are turning pages in a quiet book with dim, warm light. If this helps you unwind, consider liking and subscribing. One calm orbit at a time. Now let us begin. We spend so much of our lives in human scale, in the sizes and speeds that fit our hands and calendars, that we can forget the deeper rhythm that holds everything. Earth is a planet of repeating motions, of cycles that return the way a lullaby returns to its chorus. There is the daily turning that brings you night. There are the seasons that tilt the light and change the mood of the sky. And there are longer, slower cycles that unfold across generations. Within those rhythms, life has learned to do something very elegant. It has learned to match its timing to the world. Some of that timing is obvious. Flowers open and close, leaves appear and fall, animals migrate, and the coastline changes its voice with the tides. But much of the timing is subtle, tucked away inside cells and tissues, inside strategies that let living things wait when the world is harsh and bloom when it becomes gentle again. In that sense, the planet is not just a stage for life, it is a clock, and life is the quiet hand that moves with it. Think for a moment about waiting. We tend to see waiting as empty time, but for nature it can be active, precise, even brilliant. There are seeds that carry a future inside them, yet do not rush toward it. They remain still, sometimes for years, sometimes longer, holding their potential like a sleeping ember. When the right combination of warmth, moisture, and light arrives, the ember catches, and what was silent begins to grow. This is not magic. It is chemistry, patience, and deep sensitivity to a changing world. There are also creatures that pause in more dramatic ways, not by sleeping as you and I sleep, but by lowering the volume of life itself. Some tiny organisms can endure dryness, cold, and even the emptiness of space by entering an almost suspended state. They tuck themselves into a kind of biological stillness, and when water returns, or the conditions soften, they wake as if the pause was simply a long blink. It is one of Earth's gentlest lessons. Sometimes, survival is not about pushing forward. Sometimes it is about becoming very quiet and holding on. If you imagine the planet from far above it is not just a sphere of land and water. It is a woven system, a network of exchanges. Oxygen and carbon move through air and leaf and lung. Water travels from sea to sky and back again. Energy arrives from sunlight and is stored, spent, and shared. Even in your own body right now as you listen, there is a constant quiet coordination. Cells renew themselves. Tiny signals travel. Simple repairs happen without you asking. You are resting, but inside you, a careful kind of life continues. And outside life continues too, sometimes in ways that sound like stories, until you realize they are simply true. There are creatures in the sea that can return to an earlier life stage, under certain conditions, reversing their development in a way that feels like rewinding. It does not mean immortality in the way humans dream about it, but it does suggest that nature sometimes solves problems by stepping backward, by returning to a starting point and trying again. It is a reminder that life has more than one direction available. There are forests that behave less like collections of separate trees and more like communities linked by delicate threads in the soil. Those threads belong to fungi, which form partnerships with roots. Through these connections, resources can move, signals can pass, and the health of one part of the forest can influence the rest. If you have ever stood among tall trees and felt a quiet shared presence, there is a real biological foundation for that feeling. Beneath the leaf litter and the dark soil, there can be a web of exchange. Even the night can glow with life. Some shorelines, under the right conditions, shimmer when the water is disturbed, as if someone scattered starlight into the waves. The glow comes from tiny organisms that produce light through chemical reactions inside their bodies. When a wave breaks or a hand moves through the water, the organisms flash and the sea becomes briefly luminous. It is a kind of living response, a signal, a defense, a communication, depending on the species and context. But for a quiet observer, it can simply be beautiful, a reminder that darkness is not empty. It is easy to think of Earth as familiar, as the default setting of existence. But familiar does not mean simple. It means we have lived inside it long enough to forget how unusual it is. Consider that oxygen, the very thing that makes your inhale feel clean and nourishing, was once a disruptive force for much earlier life. Over immense spans of time, changes in the atmosphere reshaped what could thrive. Some living things adapted to use the new chemistry as a powerful source of energy, and the possibilities of life widened. The air you breathe carries deep history, not as a heavy tale, but as a quiet record of change. And then there is the invisible world that lives with you, not out in the ocean or high in the canopy, but on your skin and inside your body. You are not a solitary organism. You are a habitat. Countless microbes live on, and within you, many of them helpful, some simply present, each adapted to its tiny environment. They help with digestion and immunity, and they interact with your body in complex ways that scientists are still learning to fully describe. This is not meant to make you uneasy. It can be comforting. You are supported by a hidden community that has evolved alongside you. As we begin this slow journey, you do not need to memorize facts or hold tight to details. Let these ideas float like gentle shapes in a dim aquarium of thought, drifting past and dissolving into calm. Tonight is not about being impressed. It is about softening into wonder. And as you soften, notice the simplest truth. Life on Earth is not loud by default. Most of it is quiet. Roots grow without sound. Seeds wait without complaint. Microbes work without recognition. The ocean makes oxygen in silence. Forests trade nutrients in darkness. Even the brightest glow in the waves is cold and quiet, light without heat, like a soft signal in the night. For a moment, imagine the planet as a slow-breathing creature, not in a literal sense, but as a way to feel its rhythm. The atmosphere moving the water, cycling the carbon flowing through leaf and bone and shell. You are part of that circulation. You exhale, plants and ocean life take in. You inhale, and you carry the work of countless living processes into your body. It is a gentle partnership that has been shaping itself for a very long time. In the next part, we will settle into one of Earth's most soothing images, the idea that the oceans breathe with you, and that much of the air you rest within tonight has passed in some form through drifting life in sunlit water. For now, let your breathing remain slow. Let the room feel quiet. Let your thoughts grow softer at the edges, as if they are turning into a calm mist. As you continue to rest, imagine the planet keeping time in a way that is slower than clocks and gentler than schedules. Earth measures its moments through motion, through light arriving and fading through water, lifting into the sky and returning again. This steady rhythm does not rush. It repeats, adjusts, and carries life along with it, like a calm current that knows where it is going, even when we do not. One of the most soothing rhythms to consider is the daily exchange between ocean and air. The sea covers most of the planet, stretching wide and deep, absorbing sunlight near its surface and holding darkness below. In those sunlit layers, countless tiny organisms drift. They are small beyond ordinary noticing, but together they perform one of the most important tasks on Earth. They help shape the air itself. These drifting lives use sunlight to turn carbon dioxide and water into energy, releasing oxygen as a quiet gift. You do not hear this happening. There is no sound when oxygen is made. It slips into the water, then into the air, mixing and spreading, until it becomes part of every breath taken across the planet. When you inhale, some of that oxygen may have passed through the body of something so small it never had a name. This does not mean the ocean belongs to you, or that you belong to it in any simple way. It means you are connected through processes that do not care about borders or species. The sea breathes out. You breathe in. You breathe out. Plants and ocean life take in. The cycle continues smooth and unbroken, like a slow tide that never truly stops. If you picture the surface of the ocean from above, it may seem calm or restless, depending on the day. But beneath the waves, there is a steadier world. Currents move with patience. Layers of water slide past one another at different temperatures and densities. Life settles into niches shaped by light pressure and chemistry. Some creatures glow softly when disturbed. Others remain invisible, transparent as water itself. Bioluminescence is one of the ocean's quiet spectacles. When certain organisms are moved by a wave or a passing body, a chemical reaction produces a brief flash of light. It is cold light, meaning it does not waste energy as heat. For the organism, it can be a signal or a defense. For a human observer standing still at night, it can feel like the sea is answering touch with a gentle sparkle. This glow has appeared many times in the history of life. It is not a single invention. Different groups discovered it independently, each finding their own way to turn chemistry into light. In the deep ocean where sunlight never reaches, this glow becomes a common language. Signals flicker and fade, creating brief constellations in the dark water. Even there, life finds a way to be seen softly. Far below those glowing signals in the deeper parts of the ocean, the rhythm changes again. Pressure increases, temperatures drop, light disappears entirely, and yet life remains. Strange and delicate forms drift or cling to the seafloor, adapted to conditions that feel impossible from the surface. Some rely not on sunlight, but on chemicals released from cracks in the Earth's crust. Heat and minerals rise from below, and life gathers around them, feeding on energy from stone. These deep places are important not because they are extreme, but because they show how flexible life can be. They suggest that life does not need comfort, it needs opportunity. Given the right chemistry and time-living systems, assemble themselves in ways that fit their surroundings. They do not complain about darkness or pressure. They adapt quietly and continue. Closer to the surface again, there are cycles that play out with remarkable precision. Coral reefs, for example, follow rhythms tied to the moon. On certain nights each year, many corals release their eggs and sperm into the water at the same time. The timing is guided by subtle cues, light levels, temperature, and the pull of the moon itself. For a brief window, the water fills with drifting beginnings. Then the moment passes, and the reef returns to its usual stillness. This kind of synchronization is not loud. It does not announce itself. It simply happens when the conditions align. It is another example of Earth keeping time through relationships rather than commands. No single coral is in charge. The rhythm emerges from shared sensitivity to the world. As you rest, you might notice your own breathing settling into a similar pattern. Inhale, exhale, pause, inhale again. You do not need to tell your lungs what to do. They respond to signals older than thought. They adjust to carbon dioxide levels in your blood, to the position of your body, to the quiet or activity around you. Like the ocean, your body knows how to regulate itself when given space. Even your mind follows rhythms. During the day, thoughts can feel sharp and fast. At night, especially when you allow yourself to slow down, they can lengthen and soften. Images drift in without needing to connect. Memories lose their edges. This is not a loss of control. It is a return to a different mode, one that favors rest and restoration. There is a gentle comfort in remembering that Earth does not demand constant attention. It carries on whether we watch it or not. The tides rise and fall. Oxygen circulates. Microbes divide and cooperate. Seeds wait. None of this depends on your effort tonight. You are allowed to step back, and let the larger systems hold the night for you. Consider how much of life depends on stillness. Growth often begins with waiting. Healing begins with rest. Even the oceans, which seem endlessly active, have deep layers that move only slightly over long periods of time. Slowness is not a failure of motion. It is a different kind of motion, one that works on scales large enough to shape worlds. As you continue drifting, let the idea of Earth's breathing settle into your thoughts without needing to be precise. You do not need exact numbers or measurements. It is enough to know that the air around you is alive with exchange shaped by water, leaf, and light. Each breath you take tonight is part of a story far older than language. In the next part, we will turn our attention from the open ocean to what lies beneath the ground, to the quiet networks that connect forests and fields, and to the idea that cooperation can happen without voices or visibility. For now, remain where you are. Let your breathing stay slow and easy. Let your body sink into the surface beneath you. Nothing needs to be solved. Nothing needs to be finished. The planet is keeping time for you. A little farther now. Let us drift from the wide breathing ocean toward land, toward places that feel still and familiar, like a forest at night or a garden after rain. Above the ground, trees stand as separate shapes, each with its own trunk and crown, each holding its own leaves up to the sky. But beneath the surface, the story becomes less about individuals and more about connection. Under the soil, there is a living layer that most of us rarely notice. Roots spread outward, searching for water, and minerals threading around stones, making careful contact with the earth. Alongside those roots, another kind of life weaves itself through the darkness. Neither plant nor animal, but something in between. Fungi grow as fine threads so thin they can slip between grains of soil, forming networks that can stretch far beyond what we would expect. In many forests, these fungal threads link with the roots of trees in a partnership that benefits both sides. The fungus gains sugars made by photosynthesis energy produced in the leaves and sent down into the ground. In return, the fungus helps the tree reach nutrients and water that might otherwise be difficult to access. It is a trade, quiet and ancient, repeated countless times across the planet. This is one of the reasons forests can feel like they have a shared presence. The trees are not merely standing near each other. They are often connected through a living network in the soil. Through this network, resources can move and chemical signals can travel. If one area becomes dry, the imbalance is felt. If pests arrive, information in the form of signaling molecules can spread. Not as words, not as thoughts, but as biology, doing what biology does, responding and adapting. Sometimes older trees, larger and more established, can support younger ones. The details depend on species and circumstance, and scientists continue to learn how these exchanges work, but the broad picture is soothing. In a forest, support can be built into the system. Life does not always stand alone. It often survives through relationship. If you have ever leaned against a tree and felt a sense of steadiness, you can imagine that steadiness extending downward into a hidden world of threads and roots. The surface might look quiet, but below the forest is busy with exchange. Water rises, minerals move, sugars travel, signals pass. All of it without sound, without announcement, without anyone needing to watch. And just as the ocean has its own form of breathing, the land does too. Plants inhale carbon dioxide through tiny pores on their leaves and release oxygen as they use sunlight to build sugars. At night, the pattern shifts. Photosynthesis slows or stops, and plants draw from stored energy to maintain themselves until morning. Even in stillness, there is motion. Even in darkness, there is strategy. This gentle idea of timing and budgeting appears again and again in living systems. Consider a plant on a long night. It cannot go out and find food. It cannot change its location. It must manage what it has stored, using it carefully until dawn. The simple elegance of that management is part of what makes life on Earth feel so quietly intelligent. In the soil, there are also creatures that act as engineers shaping the ground itself. Earthworms, for instance, move through darkness, tunneling and mixing the soil, bringing organic material down and minerals up. Their movement aerates the ground, helps water travel, and creates space for roots. They do not build with tools, yet their slow work changes the structure of entire landscapes over long periods of time. If you rest your attention on the idea of soil, it can feel calming, because soil is a place where time is softened. Leaves fall and break down. Wood decays. The remains of one season become nourishment for the next. Decomposers, including fungi and microbes, transform what is old into what is usable. Nothing is wasted in the long view. It is simply changed. This recycling, this gentle turning of endings into beginnings, is one of Earth's most comforting patterns. Even when something stops growing, it becomes part of a larger cycle. Even when a tree falls, its body can feed a new web of life. The forest does not hurry through these processes. It lets them unfold at the pace they require. And in the air above a forest, there can be other kinds of communication. Some plants release chemicals when they are damaged, and those chemicals can be detected by nearby plants. The neighbors may respond by adjusting their own defenses, changing the chemistry of their leaves, or preparing for similar threats. Again, this is not a conscious conversation, but it is information moving through the environment, a whisper made of molecules. You do not need to hold on to this in a technical way. You can simply imagine a forest as a place where messages travel softly, where the air carries cues and the soil carries threads. When you walk through such a place, you are walking through layers of communication that are invisible to you but not absent. It can also be soothing to remember that the senses of other creatures may be tuned to parts of this hidden world. Insects can detect chemicals and patterns we do not notice. Some animals sense magnetic fields. Others see ultraviolet markings on flowers. The planet contains many overlapping realities, all sharing the same physical space, each shaped by different ways of sensing. As you continue drifting, you might feel your own senses narrowing down to what matters for sleep. The softness of your surface, the temperature of the air, the slow rhythm of your breath. The rest of the world can fade for now. It is still there. It is still working, but you are allowed to step away from it. Before we move on, imagine the forest floor as a calm map. Roots like gentle rivers, fungal threads like fine lines of connection, worm tunnels like quiet pathways, and above trees lifting their leaves toward the last remaining traces of daylight. Even if you are not in a forest tonight, your mind can rest in that image because it is built from something real, something steady. In the next part, we will enter one of our signature segments, lingering in this underground world, letting it become more vivid, more soothing, and more like a lullaby you can simply float within. For now, take a slow breath. Let your jaw relax. Let your shoulders settle again. The forest can hold the night for you, without asking anything in return. For a little while, let us return to the sea, not as a place you must picture in detail, but as a wide, gentle presence that supports the air around you. Imagine the ocean at night, dark at the surface, smooth in some places, softly textured in others, moving with a steady patience. Even when it looks still from far away, it is never truly motionless. It shifts with tides, with winds, with the slow turning of the earth, and with currents that thread through it like quiet roads. Now imagine the uppermost layer of that ocean, the place where sunlight reaches during the day. This bright skin of water is thin compared to the full depth of the sea, and yet it holds an extraordinary amount of life. Tiny organisms drift there so small that a single one would be easy to miss, but together they form vast living clouds. They do not have to swim quickly. Many simply float, rising and falling with subtle changes in water density, moving with the current as if they are being carried in a cradle. Some of these drifting lives are photosynthetic, meaning they use sunlight to build energy. They take in carbon dioxide and water, and through chemistry that has been refined by evolution, they create sugars and release oxygen. It is a quiet process. No bubbles of celebration, no sound. Just steady, invisible work, repeated across a surface so broad that it touches nearly every part of the world. If you take a slow breath right now, you are drawing in air, that has been shaped by countless living exchanges like this. The oxygen in your lungs comes from many sources, including plants on land, but also from the ocean, from these tiny drifting lives. They are sometimes called phytoplankton, though you do not need the label to feel the meaning. They are small makers of air floating in light. The idea can be soothing if you let it settle gently. You are not only breathing for yourself, you are participating in a planet-sized exchange. You exhale carbon dioxide. Life that captures light can take it in. Oxygen is released and mixed into the air, and you inhale again. This is not a perfect loop with neat boundaries, but it is a real flow, a circulation that has been stabilizing and reshaping itself over immense spans of time. There is something calming about processes that do not require attention. The ocean does not need your help to keep doing its quiet work. The drifting organisms do not need an audience. They respond to light and nutrients, to temperature, and currents to seasons and changing water chemistry. They rise with spring blooms, in some regions fade in others, and return again when conditions invite them back. The pattern is always in motion, always adjusting, always steady in the way that living systems can be steady. If you imagine the ocean during the day, you can picture shafts of sunlight entering the water bright near the surface and softer as they go down. In that light, the drifting organisms are like dust motes in a sunbeam, except each mote is alive, turning energy into chemistry, chemistry into food, and food into the foundation of entire ecosystems. Because the oxygen they release is only one part of their importance. They also support life in the sea by feeding small creatures that feed larger ones. The chain of nourishment begins at tiny scales. A whale, massive and graceful, can be supported by food webs that begin with organisms too small to be seen without magnification. This is one of Earth's quiet themes. The largest shapes in life often rely on the smallest. It can be helpful to think of the ocean as a kind of soft engine, not loud, not violent, but steady. It absorbs heat and distributes it. It stores carbon in complex ways. It carries nutrients across continents. It shapes weather and clouds. When you hear that rainforests can help make their own rainfall, you can also remember that oceans are partners in those cycles, evaporating water, sending moisture into the air, feeding clouds that drift inland. Even at night, when the surface looks dark, the ocean continues its exchanges. Some organisms rise and fall in the water column, with the cycle of day and night moving upward when darkness offers cover, drifting downward when daylight returns. This daily migration, repeated by countless small animals, is one of the largest movements of biomass on Earth. And still, it happens silently, without anyone noticing from a beach. You may not need that image to sleep, so let it stay soft like a suggestion. Imagine the ocean breathing in and out, not in a literal sense, but as a way to feel its rhythm. Water evaporating, clouds forming, rain returning, carbon moving, oxygen mixing, all of it happening with a pace that does not demand anything from you. Now for a moment, bring that idea closer. Imagine the air in your room as a gentle mixture that has traveled, that has been warmed and cooled, that has brushed past leaves and ocean surfaces, that has mixed with the breath of other living beings. There is no need to make this feel crowded. It can feel spacious. The air is a shared medium, and sharing can be calm. As you inhale, the oxygen enters your lungs and moves into your blood. It is carried through your body, supporting the quiet work of your cells. It helps your muscles relax. It helps your brain slow into night rhythms. Your body uses it without asking your conscious mind for permission. This is one of the kindest things about being alive. Much of the work continues on your behalf while you rest. And when you exhale, you release carbon dioxide, which will eventually mix into the atmosphere and in time may become part of a leaf or part of ocean life near the surface, or part of a chemical pathway you will never see. Your exhale is not waste. It is part of circulation. It is part of exchange. If you like, you can use this as a relaxation cue. With each inhale, imagine you are receiving a quiet gift from the sunlit ocean's surface, filtered through time and distance. With each exhale, imagine you are returning something small to the planet that holds you. not as a responsibility but as a gentle participation in something larger. There is another soothing truth here. Many of the systems that keep you alive do not require constant growth or constant speed. They require balance. They require repeating patterns. Sleep itself is a repeating pattern coming each night, restoring your body, settling your mind. In that sense, you are like the ocean. You also move through cycles. You also rise and fall in your own internal tides. As you continue drifting, let the thought of ocean-made oxygen become simpler, not more complex. You do not need to imagine microscopes or laboratories. You can simply picture a wide expanse of water sunlight touching its surface by day, and tiny drifting lives, turning that light into a breath you can use by night. In the next part, we will return to the theme of waiting and survival, through stillness to the way some organisms pause themselves, sometimes for long periods, and then return when the world becomes welcoming again. For now, remain quiet. Let your face soften. Let your tongue rest easily. Let the space behind your eyes feel calm. You have got nothing to do but rest, and the ocean is still doing what it has always done, turning light into air and carrying life forward, one slow cycle at a time. For a moment, let the image of the ocean fade into the background like a light dimming behind a curtain. Now we drift into a quieter idea, one that fits naturally with sleep. The idea that life does not always move forward in a straight line. Sometimes it pauses. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it holds itself in stillness until the world becomes gentle again. We often think of life as constant activity, a steady push toward growth and change. But Earth is full of living things that survive by doing almost the opposite. They slow down. They reduce. They become quiet on purpose, not as a weakness, but as a strategy. In this way, nature reminds us that rest is not merely an absence of motion. Rest can be a form of wisdom. Consider a seed. It is small enough to hold in your palm, and yet it contains a whole future folded into a tiny package. Inside, there are instructions and stored materials, and a careful sensitivity to the environment. Many seeds do not sprout the moment they touch soil. They wait. They listen for moisture. They sense temperature. They respond to light and seasonal cues. They can remain dormant for long stretches of time, preserving their ability to grow until the conditions are right. In some cases, that waiting can last far longer than we would expect. Evidence suggests that certain seeds can remain viable for decades, even centuries, under the right circumstances. There are rare stories of ancient seeds preserved in dry places and later coaxed into growth. You do not need to treat these as miracles. You can treat them as examples of patience written into biology. A seed does not panic because the world is not ready. It simply stays still. It keeps its promise in silence. This is one of the most soothing patterns on Earth. Life does not always insist. It adapts by timing itself to the world. It accepts the night. It accepts the winter. It accepts the dry season. And when the warmth returns, when the rain arrives, when the moment becomes suitable, it begins again. There are animals that do something similar, though, in ways that may sound even more surprising. Some tiny creatures can enter a special state where their metabolism slows to an extreme degree. Their bodies dry out. Their activity nearly stops. They become, in a sense, paused. One of the best-known examples is a group of microscopic animals, often nicknamed water bears. They are very small, but they have an unusual resilience. When conditions become harsh, such as extreme cold, extreme dryness, or a lack of oxygen, they can shift into a dormant form. In this state, they lose much of their water content and suspend most of their normal biological activity. The body becomes compact and still like a small curled seed of its own. This state is sometimes described as cryptobiosis, which is a way of saying hidden life. Life that does not look active yet is not truly gone. It is waiting. If water returns, if the environment becomes friendly again, the creature can rehydrate and resume living. It is not immortality. It is not invincibility. But it is a remarkable kind of endurance, a method of surviving by becoming almost motionless. You can let this idea feel comforting rather than strange. It suggests that there are many ways to exist. There is the bright, active way of daylight life, and there is the quiet, stored way of waiting life. Both are valid. Both are part of Earth. And in a gentle way, sleep belongs to that same family of strategies. It is your own nightly pause, your own way of letting the world soften while your body restores itself. Many organisms have their own version of this pause. Some insects survive cold seasons by producing natural substances that reduce damage from freezing. Others enter deep dormancy, waiting for spring. Some plants drop leaves to reduce water loss during dry times. Some animals slow their heart rate, lower their body temperature, and settle into a long rest that lasts for months. None of this is dramatic. It is simply timing. It is biology aligning with environment. If you are feeling tired tonight, you are not failing at anything. You are doing what living things have always done. You are entering a restorative state that keeps you resilient. Your mind can loosen its grip. Your body can shift into repair. The planet itself, in its many cycles, seems to approve of this. Night arrives. Activity reduces. The world becomes quieter. And then later, morning returns. There is another kind of waiting that is more subtle and perhaps even more soothing. It is the waiting that happens inside your own body without you noticing. Your cells are constantly balancing between action and rest. Some are active now, keeping your heart steady and your lungs moving. Others are focused on maintenance, replacing proteins, clearing waste, repairing small damage, and refreshing tissues. Even when you sleep, the body is not inactive. It is simply working in a quieter mode, one that supports healing. If you like, you can imagine your body as a garden at night. The visible activity has stopped, but beneath the surface there is still care happening. The soil is settling. Water is moving through roots. Tiny organisms are recycling nutrients. The garden is preparing for tomorrow without urgency. That is what your body does as well. The planet offers many metaphors for this kind of rest, but none are required. You can simply breathe and let the story move around you like soft air. Inhale and notice the sensation of being supported. Exhale and notice the sensation of letting go. There is no need to hold tight to each example. Let them pass gently like slow clouds. A seed waits. A microscopic creature pauses. An insect endures winter. A forest holds stillness beneath snow. And you tonight are allowed to do the same. You can set down your tasks. You can set down your unfinished thoughts. You can become quiet in the way the planet becomes quiet. There is a gentle dignity in this. Nature is not ashamed of rest. It does not apologize for it. It uses it. It depends on it. Without rest, systems would fray. Without pauses, cycles would break. Sleep is not a luxury. It is part of resilience, part of continuity. In the next part, we will return to the hidden networks beneath forests, and we will drift into a calm view of cooperation, connection, and quiet sharing. But for now, let the theme of waiting settle into you like a warm blanket. If your mind wanders, let it wander. If a thought appears, let it float by without following it. You have got nothing to do but rest. The earth knows how to pause. Life knows how to wait. And you, for this night, can follow that ancient wisdom one slow breath at a time. Now let us drift back to the land again, into places where the air feels softer and the world seems to slow on its own. Imagine a forest at dusk, the last light thinning between the branches, the ground darkening, the sounds becoming fewer. In that kind of quiet, it is easier to believe that the most important things are happening where we cannot see them. Beneath the surface, beneath the fallen leaves and needles, beneath the first layers of soil, there is a living architecture. Roots spread out from trees and plants, branching again and again, reaching for water and nutrients, wrapping around stones, exploring tiny pockets of moisture. And among those roots, another network grows finer than hair, more widespread than we would guess, and patient beyond any human schedule. Fungi live in this hidden world, extending themselves as threads that can travel through soil in all directions. In many places, they form close partnerships with plant roots. The relationship is mutual. Plants provide sugars made from sunlight. Fungi help deliver minerals and water. And sometimes they can extend the reach of a plant far beyond what the roots alone could access. The result is an underground system that feels in its own quiet way like shared infrastructure. In some forests, the fungal network can link multiple plants and trees. The connections are not always simple, and they vary by species and conditions, but the possibility itself is soothing. It means that the forest is not just a collection of separate trunks. It can be at times a web of relationships. Through this web, plants can exchange resources. When one part of the forest is in sunlight and another is shaded, the flow of sugars and nutrients can shift. When a young seedling struggles, it may benefit from the established network around it. When a tree is stressed by drought or damage, chemical signals can move through the system, warning nearby plants, prompting them to adjust their own defenses or chemistry. This is not kindness in a human sense. It is not a decision. It is simply what happens when living things are deeply interwoven. If you have ever felt a calm presence in a forest, as if the place itself is steady, you can imagine that steadiness coming not only from the visible trees, but from the invisible threads holding the system together. The forest is supported from below. You can picture it as slow currents moving through dark soil, sugars traveling downward from leaves that gathered sunlight during the day, minerals moving upward from damp earth, messages passing not as words but as chemical cues, quiet information. It is a different kind of communication, one that does not need sound. It only needs connection. And connection in nature often looks nothing like the connections we make. There are no visible wires. There are no bright signals. There is just contact, proximity, and time. Life works with what it has. It uses touch. It uses chemistry. It uses gradients of moisture and nutrients. In doing so, it creates systems that can feel like intelligence, even when they are simply adaptation. This theme repeats in many forms. Ant colonies build structures together, without a blueprint. Coral reefs become cities without planning. Slime molds find efficient paths without a brain. Forests share resources without a leader. Earth is filled with examples of complexity arising from many small actions. In that sense, cooperation can be an emergent property of life, as natural as breathing. Even plants, which we often imagine as passive, have a rich range of responses to their surroundings. They open and close pores on their leaves to manage gas exchange and water loss. They shift growth patterns toward light. Some can respond to vibrations and touch. Some release chemical signals when damaged, altering their own tissues and influencing nearby plants. Again, this is not alarm. It is simply responsiveness. If you like, you can let this idea become a gentle comfort as you lie still. You do not have to solve everything alone. Life on Earth often thrives through networks. Support can come from systems you do not consciously control. Your own body is a network too. Nerves, blood vessels, hormones, immune signals, all working together. No single cell knows the whole plan, and yet the whole works. Just as in a forest, cooperation emerges from countless small interactions. This can be a calming way to think about your own rest. You do not need to direct the process of sleep. You only need to allow it. Your body already knows the pathways. It will lower your alertness, shift your brain rhythms, relax your muscles, and begin the nightly work of repair and memory organization. Like a forest operating at night, your system continues with quiet coordination. Now imagine for a moment the scent of soil after rain. The smell is partly the result of microbes and plant compounds, tiny chemical traces released into the air. Even the scent of earth is a message from the hidden world. It is a reminder that life is present in places that seem empty. The ground beneath you is not dead matter. It is a living interface between rock and root, and microbe always changing. Somewhere in a forest right now, fungi are extending their threads. Somewhere roots are taking in water. Somewhere a tree is moving sugars into storage for the night. Somewhere a seed is waiting for a future spring. The world continues its quiet work, and you here in your room can let your own work pause. You can let your thoughts become less urgent. You can let them soften the way twilight softens the outline of trees. If a thought rises, you can treat it like a leaf drifting in still air. It appears, it moves, and it settles. In the next part, we will enter another signature segment, lingering longer in this underground web and letting it feel more like a soothing landscape you can rest inside. For now, take a gentle breath. Let your belly rise and fall without effort. Let your hands feel heavy. Let your feet feel warm or cool, however they are, without needing to change anything. The forest below the surface is patient. It does not hurry. It simply connects. And tonight, you can rest within that same quiet patience. Imagine the forest again, but do not picture it from above with tall trunks and distant crowns. Instead, let your attention sink downward, as if you are gently lowering through layers of air, through a soft carpet of leaves, and into the cool, dark soil. This is our next signature segment, a slow, sleep-friendly moment spent in the hidden world that supports everything above it. Beneath the forest floor, the ground is not empty. It is textured, layered, alive. There are tiny spaces filled with water and air. There are grains of sand and fragments of rock. There are threads of decaying leaves turning back into soil. And woven through all of it like a quiet lace are fungal filaments, fine strands that extend and branch and meet each other in the dark. Scientists study these networks by tracing them through soil and by observing how plants behave when certain connections are present or absent. The details can be complex, and we are still learning, but the general picture is beautifully simple. Many plants form partnerships with fungi. The plant offers sugars made from sunlight, sent downward from leaves into roots. The fungus offers minerals, water, and excess, reaching into small pockets of soil that roots alone might not explore. If you imagine those fungal threads, they are not thick ropes. They are delicate, more like the finest hair or like the faint lines of a map drawn with a soft pencil. They slide between soil particles. They wrap around roots. They merge and separate and merge again. And because they can spread so widely, they create a kind of scaffolding, a supportive web that helps move resources through the underground world. In some places, this underground web can link multiple plants. When one plant has more access to light, it may produce more sugar, and some of that can move through shared connections. When another plant is shaded, or young and small, it may receive subtle support. When conditions become dry, the flow of water and minerals changes, and the network adjusts, not with intention, but with responsiveness. You can picture nutrients moving through this system like slow currents in a dark sea. Instead of waves, there are gradients of moisture. Instead of wind, there are chemical signals. Instead of sunlight, there are sugars traveling down from leaves and back outward into the soil web. Everything moves slowly enough that the forest feels steady. Now imagine that somewhere in this underground world, an older tree stands. Not as a wise character, but simply as a well-established organism with a large canopy and a strong relationship to the network below. It has experienced many seasons. Its roots spread far. Its leaves have captured sunlight for years. When such a tree grows, it is not growing alone. It is participating in exchanges, giving and receiving. There is evidence that under certain conditions, older trees can support younger ones. The idea is often described in gentle terms like caregiving, but the reality can be understood as resource flow in a connected system. Still, the feeling of it can be soothing. It suggests that the forest has ways of buffering stress, of distributing resources, of keeping life present, even when individual parts struggle. And because this network also moves information not as language but as chemistry, it can act like a quiet alert system. When insects chew on a leaf, the plant may change its chemistry, producing compounds that make it less appealing. It may also release signals that nearby plants can detect, prompting them to prepare. In this way, the forest does not react as isolated individuals. It reacts as a community of organisms tuned to each other through shared pathways. If you let that idea settle into you, it can feel like a slow reassurance. You are part of a world where support often exists in hidden forms. The most important help is not always visible. Sometimes it is beneath the surface, quiet and constant, shaping outcomes without demanding attention. Now take that idea and bring it gently inward toward your own body. Your body is also a network not of fungal threads and roots, but of blood vessels, nerves, and chemical messengers. You have a system that moves resources. Oxygen flows in your blood. Glucose moves to cells that need it. Hormones signal changes. Immune cells patrol quietly. None of this requires your conscious control. It happens through connection and timing. When you sleep, your body shifts into a mode that prioritizes restoration. It organizes memories, repairs tissues, balances hormones, and supports immune function. Like the forest underground, much of the work is invisible, and much of it is slow. You do not see a muscle cell repairing itself. You do not feel a protein being replaced, but the work happens supported by networks that evolved to keep you steady. If your mind has been busy today, you can imagine it letting go in the same way a forest lets go of leaves in autumn. Not as loss, but as part of cycling. Thoughts can fall away. The mind can become simpler. The edges of attention can soften. The deeper systems can do their quiet work. Return again to the forest floor. Imagine the threads of fungi glowing softly, not literally, but as a way to picture their presence. Imagine roots as gentle rivers. Imagine the soil as a dark, warm fabric, holding everything in place. The forest above seems still, but the underground world continues. It is patient. It is steady. It is quietly connected. In a way, this is what you are doing right now. You are letting the surface of your life become still, while the deeper layers keep working. You do not need to manage them. You only need to allow the stillness. In the next part, we will move into a different kind of marvel. The flexibility of bodies and identities, regeneration, transformation, and the calm creativity of evolution. For now, stay here a little longer in this underground quiet. Let your breathing remain slow. Let your shoulders sink. Let your face soften. The forest below the surface is holding everything gently. And tonight it can hold you too, one calm orbit at a time. Now we drift onward, leaving the underground web behind like a soft memory, and moving into another calm theme of Earth's living story. The theme of flexibility. The way life can reshape itself, not with hurry, not with drama, but with patient solutions that seem almost like quiet creativity. Evolution does not design with a single plan. It experiments over long spans of time. It keeps what works, adjusts what needs adjusting, and produces outcomes that sometimes feel surprising when we see them all at once. But most of these outcomes are not extreme. They are small modifications repeated again and again until a body becomes well suited to a niche. One soothing way to think about this is through regeneration. Some organisms can lose parts of their bodies and slowly rebuild them. This is not a superpower in a mythical sense. It is a biological ability rooted in the way cells grow, divide, and specialize. In certain animals, the rules of rebuilding remain more open than they are in humans. Starfish, for example, can regrow arms over time after injury. Their bodies are arranged in a way that supports this kind of repair. They do not have a centralized brain like ours. Their nervous system is more distributed, and their growth patterns can continue to reshape parts of the body as needed. The process is slow. It takes patience, but it works. Some flatworms are even more remarkable in their ability to rebuild. When cut into pieces, certain species can regrow into complete organisms from fragments, as long as the right cellular resources are present. This rebuilding is possible because of special stem cells that can become many different cell types. Scientists study these animals to understand how regeneration works, hoping that the principles might someday inform medicine in safe and careful ways. You do not need to imagine cutting or injury in any vivid way. You can simply hold on to the idea that life has built-in repair mechanisms across many species. Healing is not only a human hope, it is a widespread biological theme, and it often happens slowly, quietly, one cell at a time. There are other forms of flexibility that feel almost like shape-shifting, yet are grounded in physics and chemistry. Some sea creatures can change the stiffness of their bodies quickly by altering the structure of their connective tissues. Sea cucumbers, for instance, can shift between being more firm and more soft. This helps them move through narrow spaces or respond to threat, and it happens through changes in the arrangement of proteins and fibers in their tissues. On land, there are animals that change color. Chameleons are famous for this, but their color shifts are not simply camouflage. They can be signals of mood, temperature, and social interaction. Their skin contains microscopic structures that reflect light in different ways, depending on how those structures are arranged. In other words, the color change can be an effect of physical structure, not only pigment. It is biology, using physics to communicate. In the ocean, camouflage takes another form. Some cephalopods can rapidly change the color and texture of their skin to match their surroundings. Even if you do not picture this in detail, you can imagine the general idea. A creature becomes a living canvas, adjusting its appearance in response to light, shadows, and patterns around it. It is a reminder that perception shapes survival, and survival shapes bodies. Flexibility can also appear in the boundaries between environments. We tend to think of land and water as separate worlds, but some fish blur that line. Certain species can survive for periods out of water by breathing air and moving across wet ground. Their fins become supports, their skin becomes part of gas exchange, and their bodies adapt to a life that touches both worlds. This boundary crossing is not just a curiosity. It echoes deep evolutionary history. Long ago, vertebrates made the transition from water to land over enormous spans of time. The modern fish that can step onto land are not reenacting that history in a simple way, but they remind us that life often explores edges. It tests the margins of what is possible. And then there is flexibility in time itself. Some organisms can pause development. Others can delay reproduction when conditions are harsh. In some mammals, such as certain marsupials, the development of an embryo can be delayed under specific circumstances, allowing a mother to time reproduction with environmental stability. This is a gentle kind of control, a way of matching life events to the world rather than forcing them. There are also animals whose identity in terms of sex is not fixed in the way humans often assume. In some fish, social structure and environmental conditions can trigger changes in reproductive roles. Hormones shift, organs adjust. The social group remains functional. This flexibility can help ensure reproduction continues, even when group composition changes. Again, there is no need to view this with surprise. It is simply one more example of life finding multiple ways to continue. If you find your thoughts drifting, let them drift. These stories do not require you to remember each one. They are like gentle stones in a stream. You can feel their presence as the water of your attention flows past. As you rest, you might notice that your own body has its own forms of flexibility. It adjusts to temperature. It changes its heart rate. It shifts its breathing depth. It regulates sleep stages. It heals small wounds. It rebuilds tissues. Even the act of becoming sleepy is a kind of transformation, a shift from one state to another. There is a comfort in recognizing that change does not have to be abrupt. Nature often changes slowly in ways that are barely noticeable until you look back. Your own rest tonight can be part of that slow, gentle change. Your mind can transition from alertness to quiet. Your body can transition from tension to softness. It can happen gradually, without forcing. In the next part, we will explore another kind of hidden reality, the invisible senses that guide animals and reveal overlapping worlds, magnetic fields, ultraviolet patterns, and the quiet maps nature uses. For now, allow your body to settle. Feel the weight of your legs. Feel the weight of your hands. If your jaw is tight, let it loosen slightly. Flexibility is one of Earth's calm miracles. It shows up as regeneration, as camouflage, as dormancy, as shifting roles, as quiet adaptation. And tonight, it can also show up as your ability to let go of the day and become something simpler. Now we move into a softer kind of mystery, the kind that does not need darkness or distance to feel wondrous. It is the mystery of invisible maps. the hidden cues and signals that many animals use to navigate, communicate, and survive. Earth is filled with forces and patterns you cannot directly sense, and yet for other creatures, these patterns are as real as landmarks. Imagine for a moment that the world contains more layers than your eyes can see. Not in a supernatural sense, but in a gentle scientific one. Light extends beyond the colors humans perceive. Magnetic fields wrap around the planet. Temperature radiates from bodies. Chemical traces drift in air. Vibrations travel through plants and soil. Many creatures have senses tuned to these layers, as if they live in a richer spectrum than ours. Some insects, for example, can perceive ultraviolet light. To you, a flower may look like a simple color, pale yellow, white, or purple. But to a bee, the same flower can hold patterns that guide it toward nectar. These patterns are not decorations. They are functional signals shaped by evolution. Flower and insect benefit together. The insect finds food. The plant is pollinated. A quiet agreement written in light the human eye does not catch. There is something soothing about this, because it suggests that beauty and information can be hidden in plain sight. Even in places you think you know well, like a garden, there are maps and messages you are simply not equipped to see. The world is richer than your senses alone. Some animals also sense heat in ways that feel like a second kind of sight. Certain snakes have specialized organs that detect infrared radiation, allowing them to perceive warm bodies even in darkness. This is not vision like yours. It is more like sensing a thermal shape, a warm presence against a cooler background. It reminds us that the same physical world can be experienced in different ways depending on the tools a body has evolved. But perhaps the most quiet and far-reaching invisible map is the magnetic field of Earth. Lines of magnetic force stretch from pole to pole, created by deep processes in the planet. You cannot feel these lines with your skin. You cannot see them in the air. And yet many animals appear to detect them and use them for navigation. Birds that migrate long distances are often mentioned in this context. They travel across continents and oceans, returning to the same regions year after year. Their guidance is not only visual. Evidence suggests they use a combination of cues, including the sun stars, landmarks, and an internal magnetic sense. Some researchers think certain proteins in their eyes may respond to magnetic fields, offering a kind of orientation. Others study the possibility of tiny magnetic particles in tissues that behave like internal compasses. We are still learning the full story, and that is part of the wonder. Nature has ways of sensing that we do not fully share. Sea turtles also seem to use magnetic signatures. They can travel across open ocean and later return to nesting beaches. Salmon, moving from sea back to rivers, may use magnetic cues as part of their long journey. Even some insects show evidence of magnetic orientation. It is as if Earth itself offers a gentle background direction, and life has learned to listen. This listening is not conscious the way humans listen. It is embodied. It is built into nervous systems and behaviors. It is a quiet alignment between organism and planet. When you imagine it, it can feel calming. There is a sense of being held within a stable field, within a world that has structure even when you cannot see it. You can bring this feeling gently into your own rest. You are lying in a room perhaps far from oceans or forests, but you are still within the Earth's field. You are still on a planet that spins with steady predictability. You are still under the same sky that guides migrating birds. You are still inside a world of invisible patterns that continue whether you pay attention or not. And there are other invisible systems that guide life closer to home. Chemical senses, for instance, shape how many animals interpret their surroundings. Ants follow chemical trails. Plants release airborne signals when damaged. Microbes respond to gradients of nutrients. In these cases, the environment is full of cues, and life is sensitive to them. Even sound can be part of this hidden information. Some animals hear frequencies humans cannot. Bats use echolocation, mapping space with echoes. Dolphins communicate and recognize individuals through signature vocal patterns. These are not merely noises. They are structured signals. They help coordinate social bonds and survival. Again, the details can be complex, but the broad idea is gentle. The world is full of messages, and yet, despite all these messages, the planet is not noisy in the way human life can be noisy. Most signals in nature are subtle. They are tuned to specific needs. They do not overwhelm. They carry only what matters, and they fade. This can be a calming thought for a restless mind. You do not need to process everything. You do not need to respond to every cue. You can allow your senses to narrow down to the simplest signals that support sleep. The feel of your breath, the softness of your surface, the quiet temperature of the room. If your mind is still active, imagine it like a migrating bird that has reached a calm resting place. It does not need to keep flying. It can fold its effort away. It can settle. The world will still hold its structure without your attention. In the next part, we will drift into Earth's deep history, into the way the atmosphere changed long ago, and how microbes helped reshape the planet. We will keep the tone gentle and steady, as if we are looking at ancient time through soft fog. For now, let yourself be still. Let the invisible maps remain outside your awareness. You do not need them tonight. You have got nothing to do but rest. The Earth is still turning. The magnetic field is still wrapping around the planet. The hidden signals are still moving through water and air and soil. And you, for this moment, can simply be held within it all, breathing slowly and letting sleep approach in its own time. Now we drift into deeper time, into a part of Earth's story that is so old it can feel almost like a dream. When we speak of ancient Earth, we are speaking of a planet that looked different, breathed differently, and carried life in forms so small and unfamiliar that it can be hard to imagine them as the ancestors of anything you recognize. But you do not need to picture ancient Earth sharply. You can let it remain soft, like a distant landscape seen through mist. What matters tonight is the calm idea that the world changes, and life changes with it quietly, patiently, over long spans of time. One of the most important changes in Earth's history involves the air itself. Today, oxygen feels natural to us. It feels like the normal background of existence. But there was a time when oxygen was not a dominant part of the atmosphere. Early life thrived in environments that did not depend on oxygen the way humans do. These tiny organisms used other chemical pathways to extract energy. They lived in oceans and sediments in places where the chemistry suited them. Then, over time, photosynthetic microbes began releasing oxygen as a byproduct. At first, the oxygen did not accumulate in the air the way it does now. It reacted with iron and other materials in the oceans, forming minerals that settled into layers. But as the process continued across immense spans of time, oxygen began to build up more noticeably, leading to a major shift in Earth's environment. This shift is often described as a great oxidation event. The phrase sounds dramatic, but you can hold it gently. It was not a single day. It was not a sudden switch. It was a slow transformation unfolding over time so long that no individual organism could perceive the whole process. The world became gradually more oxygen-rich, and that change reshaped what kinds of life could thrive. For some organisms, oxygen was a challenge. For others, it opened new possibilities. Oxygen-based metabolism can be very efficient. Over time, it supported the emergence of more complex forms of life, including multicellular organisms and much later animals. In this way, the air you breathe tonight carries a deep record of change, a record shaped by microbes that lived long before forests and whales and humans. There is something soothing in remembering that small things can shape worlds. Microbes are tiny, but in vast numbers, and over long time, their effects are enormous. They did not intend to build the atmosphere for you. They simply lived, responding to their environment, and in doing so, they changed it. That is one of Earth's quiet truths. No single actor controls the whole story, and yet the story moves forward. Some microbes also leave behind structures that can become stone, like monuments. In shallow waters, layered formations can be built as microbial communities trap sediments and grow. Over time, these layers harden and become visible structures, like slow-built staircases in rock. Fossil forms of these structures can be extremely ancient. Living examples still exist in a few places, quiet reminders that microbial life has been shaping Earth for longer than anything else. You do not need to attach dates or exact numbers to feel the meaning. The meaning is that life began small in water, and over long time it reshaped the surface and the air, preparing the planet for later chapters. If you want a calming image, imagine the earliest oceans as dark and mineral-rich with vents on the seafloor, releasing warm water and chemicals. Some scientists believe life may have found early footholds around such environments using chemical energy rather than sunlight. Even today, deep-sea vents support communities that thrive in darkness, fed by chemistry rising from stone. These places feel like echoes of an earlier world. The idea is gentle. Life can begin where energy is available, whether from sunlight or from the chemistry of the Earth itself. That flexibility suggests resilience. It suggests that life is a pattern that can assemble itself under different conditions given time and opportunity. Now bring this ancient story back to your present breath. Oxygen fills your lungs. It enters your blood. It supports the quiet work of your cells. And when you exhale, you release carbon dioxide, part of the carbon cycle that connects air, ocean, soil, and living bodies. Carbon moves through plants and animals. It can become part of wood, part of shell, part of stone. Over long periods, it can be stored in the earth. Over shorter periods, it circulates through breathing and photosynthesis. This carbon cycle is another deep rhythm, another gentle circulation. It reminds you that the planet is not static. It is moving and exchanging, always turning materials from one form into another. You are part of that exchange tonight, without needing to do anything at all. If your mind is still awake, let it rest on the thought that your breath is ancient. Not because you are old, but because the system that supports your breath has a history older than you can easily imagine. Each inhale is supported by the legacy of microbes that helped build oxygen into the air. Each exhale becomes part of a cycle that will continue long after this night. And yet none of this needs to feel heavy. It can feel light, like a gentle reassurance that you are held within something steady. The planet has endured enormous changes. Life has adapted. The air has shifted. The oceans have turned. And through it all, Earth continues to offer a place where you can lie down and rest. In the next part, we will explore how intelligence can appear without a brain in familiar form, in slime molds, and in collective behavior, in systems where small actions add up to surprising outcomes. For now, stay with the ancient calm. Let your breathing remain slow. Let your eyelids feel heavy. Let the space in your thoughts widen as if your mind has room to drift. The deep past is not a distant story. It is present in every inhale. And tonight, that is enough. As we continue drifting, let us return to a gentle question that often comforts the mind at night. What does it mean to be intelligent? And where does intelligence truly begin? We tend to imagine intelligence as something that lives inside a skull, something powered by a brain, something expressed through speech or deliberate planning. But Earth suggests a wider, softer truth. Intelligence can appear as pattern. It can emerge from simple rules. It can be written into the way a body responds to the world. Some of the most soothing examples come from organisms that do not have brains at all, at least not in the way we recognize. And yet they behave in ways that look from the outside like problem solving. Slime molds are one such example. They are not molds in the everyday sense, and they are not animals or plants. They are a strange kind of life that can live in damp places in soil, on decaying wood, in shaded corners where moisture lingers. For much of their existence, they are not a single creature the way you might picture an animal. They can be distributed, spreading across surfaces as a living network, gathering information with their whole body. In laboratory settings, researchers have observed slime molds exploring mazes. When food sources are placed at different points, the slime mold extends itself outward in many directions, like a slow searching fog. It touches walls and corridors. It samples the environment, and then, over time, It withdraws from less efficient paths and concentrates along the most direct route between food sources. It does not do this with intention. It does not hold a map in its mind. Instead, it responds to chemical gradients and feedback. Pathways that lead to nourishment are reinforced. Pathways that do not are allowed to fade. Over time, the shape of the organism becomes a kind of answer. The solution is not thought. The solution is growth. There is something profoundly calming about this. It suggests that in a complex world, you do not always need a master plan. You can explore gently. You can try, adjust, and simplify. You can let the less useful paths fall away. Even the mind, in its own way, can do this during sleep. It reorganizes. It prunes. It strengthens some connections and quiets others. Not because you command it to, but because your brain has evolved to restore balance. Another soothing example of intelligence without a central commander appears in social insects. Ants, for example, can build structures with their bodies, bridges that form and dissolve as needed, rafts that float during floods, living architectures that shift in response to pressure and motion. No single ant holds the blueprint. Each ant follows simple rules, responding to touch, scent, and the behavior of its neighbors. The colony as a whole produces outcomes that look coordinated. This is sometimes called collective intelligence, but you can think of it more gently as harmony emerging from many small actions. A single ant is limited. Many ants together become adaptable. The same principle appears in bird flocks, fish schools, and even microbial communities. Each individual follows local cues. The group becomes fluid and responsive like a living wave. Even plants rooted and quiet show forms of pattern-based behavior that can feel like careful adjustment. A plant does not move from place to place, but it can change how it grows. It can aim leaves toward light. It can adjust the opening and closing of pores on its leaf surfaces to balance water loss with gas exchange. It can respond to damage by altering chemistry. It can time energy use across night hours, drawing down stored resources at a pace that helps it survive until dawn. You do not need to frame any of this as thought. You can frame it as responsiveness. Life is sensitive to its environment, and over time, evolution shapes that sensitivity into strategies that look like wisdom. If you want another quiet example, consider how some birds navigate long migrations, or how sea turtles return to natal beaches. They use a combination of cues and internal senses. They do not need to understand the physics of a magnetic field to use it. Their bodies do the sensing. Their behaviors do the rest. In nature, understanding is not always required for effective action. This is comforting, because it suggests that you do not need to understand everything tonight either. You do not need to solve the day. You do not need to map every worry. You can allow your nervous system to do what it is built to do, shifting into rest, lowering vigilance, letting the mind soften. Think of sleep as a kind of gentle intelligence. Your body chooses it because it supports you. Your brain shifts into rhythms that restore memory and emotion. Your immune system performs quiet maintenance. Your muscles release tension. Your breathing slows. The whole system rebalances itself. You do not have to direct this. You only have to allow it. If your thoughts are still busy, try a simple cue. On your next inhale, imagine your mind widening like a soft field, making room for fewer thoughts. On your next exhale, imagine the less useful paths, fading gently like a slime mold withdrawing from an empty corridor. You are not forcing anything. You are letting your system choose efficiency through calm. Earth does not insist that intelligence looks one way. It appears in many forms, in networks, in feedback loops, in bodies that learn through shape and response. And because you are part of Earth, your own mind can learn to rest in many ways too. In the next part, we will return to the ocean once more, to the idea of sound and communication beneath the waves, and to the gentle fact that messages can travel through water across great distances. For now, let the idea of quiet intelligence settle like a soft blanket over your thoughts. You have got nothing to do but rest. your body already knows the way. A little farther now, let us drift back toward the ocean, not as a vast challenge to understand, but as a place where sound carries gently and far. Water holds vibrations in a different way than air. It can transmit low, slow tones across great distances, and in the deep, where light fades, sound can become one of the primary ways living beings connect. Imagine being beneath the surface, suspended in dark blue water, with no need to swim, no need to breathe, no need to move, just floating in a quiet world. In that world, a distant sound can arrive like a soft ripple, not sharp, not sudden, but steady, a low note that seems to come from everywhere at once. Whales are among the most familiar examples of long-distance ocean sound. Some species produce calls that travel incredibly far underwater. These are not songs in the human sense, but they can have structure, repetition, and change. They can serve as communication, as navigation, as a way of maintaining contact across large spaces. You can picture a whale moving slowly through the sea, vast and calm, carrying a world of muscle and warmth through cold water. When it calls, the sound moves outward, spreading through the ocean like a soft wave. Somewhere far away, another whale may hear it, not with ears the way you hear, but with a body tuned to water vibration. The call becomes information. It becomes presence. Different populations can have distinct patterns, and some calls can shift over time. This hints at learning and tradition. Not necessarily culture in the human sense, but the sharing of patterns across generations, sounds passed along, because they help individuals stay connected. In a world without sight, connection can be carried through tone. This is soothing when you let it remain gentle. You do not need to imagine loneliness in the ocean. You can imagine a wide space where messages can drift. A world where distance does not always mean separation. Sound can bridge it. And whales are not alone in using the ocean as a medium for communication. Dolphins use clicks and whistles. They can produce signature patterns that appear to help identify individuals. The ocean in this way becomes a web of sound. Not constant noise, but bursts of information. A call, a reply, a pause, like breathing. Even smaller organisms participate in this living ocean. Fish make sounds. Crustaceans snap and scrape. Some reefs have a kind of background chorus, the steady crackle and whisper of many small lives. If you have ever listened to a seashell, you have heard something that resembles ocean sound, though what you hear is not the sea itself. Still, the idea remains comforting. The ocean is not silent. It speaks in soft frequencies, many of them too low or too complex for the human ear to interpret as meaning. And yet, despite all this sound, the ocean remains a place of calm for the sleeping mind because its signals are not addressed to you. You do not need to respond. You can simply imagine the existence of these calls as evidence of connection in the world. Now bring the idea of sound closer to your own experience of resting. Sound in your room may be minimal: a fan, distant traffic, the faint hum of a building. You can treat these sounds as part of your own environment, not interruptions but background waves. Just as a whale call travels through water, these small sounds travel through air. They pass by. They do not require engagement. They can become part of a steady backdrop that makes you feel held. If your mind latches onto a sound, you can let it soften by imagining it as a wave moving away. It appears, it moves, it fades. It does not need interpretation. Your nervous system can learn to treat it as safe, as neutral, as part of the world continuing while you rest. The ocean offers another calming lesson here. In the sea, motion and rest coexist. Currents move, even when an animal is still. Tides rise, even when the surface looks calm. Sound travels, even when darkness hides the source. Life continues, but it does not always require activity from you. There is also a gentle reminder in the way communication works in nature. It tends to be efficient. It tends to be purposeful. Animals do not speak endlessly. They signal what matters, then return to quiet. The ocean is full of space between messages. That space is important. It is part of the rhythm. Call, then silence. Movement, then stillness. Breath, then pause. You can allow your own mind to find that rhythm. A thought may arise, then fade. A feeling may pass through, then settle. There can be space between them. The space is where rest lives. In the next part, we will drift into a final signature segment, one that is especially sleep-friendly, returning to the idea of hidden glow and gentle light in darkness, and the quiet truth that even bodies can emit faint light through ordinary chemistry. For now, remain with the ocean of sound. Let it be wide and unhurried. Let it support your quiet. Your shoulders can soften again. Your breathing can remain slow. You are safe enough to rest. For a little while, let us enter our final signature segment. A calm, close, focused moment that feels like a small lamp in a dark room. Not bright, not sharp, just a faint presence. Tonight, that lamp is the quiet idea of living glow, not as a spectacle, but as a gentle reminder that life is active even when it looks still. When people think of glowing life, they often imagine fireflies or glowing waves, the kind of bioluminescence that is visible in darkness. That kind of glow is real, and it is beautiful, and it appears in many parts of the tree of life. But there is another kind of light, one that is far more subtle, and one that you do not see with your eyes. In living cells, chemistry is always unfolding. Molecules are broken down and rebuilt. Energy is moved from one form into another. Oxygen participates in reactions that support metabolism, and sometimes, as a side effect of ordinary biochemical processes, tiny packets of light can be released. Photons, the smallest units of light, can emerge from reactions that involve molecules returning from an excited state to a calmer one. This light is incredibly faint. It is not like the glow of a lanternfish or the sparkle of plankton. It is far below the threshold of human vision. But with extremely sensitive instruments, researchers have detected very weak emissions from living tissues. The details vary, and scientists continue to study what these emissions reveal about metabolism and oxidative processes. You do not need to hold the technical side. You only need the gentle image. Life has a softness to it, even at the level of chemistry, a kind of quiet shimmer hidden beneath the surface. Now let this idea become a soothing metaphor. Not a metaphor that distorts science, but a soft way of feeling what is true. Your body, even in rest, is not switched off. It is quietly active. Cells are maintaining themselves. Systems are balancing. Heat is radiating gently from your skin. Blood is moving. Your lungs are breathing. Your brain is shifting into slower rhythms. In that sense, you are quietly luminous, not in a way anyone can see, but in the sense that life carries energy and motion even when you are still. You can imagine your body as a calm landscape at night, with tiny lights far in the distance. Not sparks, not fireworks, just faint points of activity. A cell repairing a membrane, a protein being replaced, a nerve signal settling into a slower cadence. This is not something you have to monitor. It is simply happening like the way a forest continues exchanging resources underground, while everything above seems asleep. If you prefer a more visible kind of glow, you can return for a moment to the sea. Picture a night shoreline where waves break softly and the water flashes with pale blue-green light. Tiny organisms respond to motion with brief illumination. The wave moves, and for a moment the water seems alive with stars. Then the light fades, and the darkness returns. That rhythm is soothing, light and dark appearing and disappearing, never forced. The most comforting part of bioluminescence is that it does not try to be bright. It only needs to be enough. A short signal, a quick distraction, a moment of communication, then quiet again. In a similar way, your mind tonight does not need to be bright. It does not need to be sharp. It does not need to solve. It only needs to be enough. Enough to breathe, enough to let go, enough to drift. Now bring the idea of faint light inward again. Imagine the space behind your eyelids as a dark room. In that room, you do not need to see clearly. You do not need to focus. You can let thoughts move like slow fireflies, far away, small points that appear and fade without demanding attention. If a worry tries to glow too brightly, you can soften it by returning to your breath. Inhale slowly and imagine you are dimming the room. Exhale and imagine you are turning down the volume of your thinking. Not shutting it off, only lowering it the way night lowers the brightness of a landscape. There is also a gentle cosmic echo here, though we will keep it calm and grounded. The elements in your body were forged in ancient stars long ago, scattered through space and gathered into a planet where chemistry could become life. You are not only on Earth, you are part of a longer story of matter, becoming organized into living patterns. Stardust became soil, soil became plant, plant became animal, animal became you, lying quietly in a room, breathing and becoming sleepy. This is not meant to make you feel small. It is meant to make you feel held. The same universe that made stars also made the calm processes that keep you alive. The same planet that turned sunlight into oxygen also supports the breath entering your lungs right now. The same chemistry that can produce faint photons in cells is the chemistry that repairs you as you sleep. If you like, you can take one more relaxation cue. Let your forehead smooth. Let your eyes rest in their sockets without tension. Let your tongue rest gently in your mouth. Let your shoulders sink. Let your hands soften. Each small release is like a light, fading not into emptiness, but into rest. In the next part, we will begin closing this journey. We will gather the themes: resilience, connection, hidden maps, deep time, quiet intelligence, and let them settle into a simple feeling. The feeling that life is extraordinary in its calm persistence, and that you are allowed to pause within it. For now, remain with the faint glow of being alive, not a performance, not a demand, just a soft shimmer of chemistry and breath. You have got nothing to do but rest. And even in rest, life continues gently like a quiet light in the dark. Now we begin to let the journey settle. The way snow settles after a long, quiet fall. The way waves settle after wind has passed. You do not need to hold every detail from tonight. You can let most of it fade because its purpose was never to be memorized. Its purpose was to guide you into a softer state, where curiosity can exist without effort, and where wonder can be calm enough to become sleep. We have drifted through many layers of Earth's living story. We began with the ocean, with tiny drifting makers of air, turning sunlight into oxygen, supporting breath for countless beings, including you. We moved into the theme of waiting and dormancy, the way life sometimes survives by becoming quiet, by pausing in the dark, until the world becomes welcoming again. We visited the hidden web beneath forests, the slow threads of fungi and roots that connect plants in ways we are still learning to describe, a quiet cooperation that supports life above ground. We touched the idea of flexibility, the way bodies can regenerate, transform, camouflage, and adapt not with urgency, but with patient solutions. We listened to invisible maps, ultraviolet patterns on petals, thermal shapes, and the magnetic field that wraps the planet, guiding migrations and returning journeys. We drifted into deep time, remembering that the air itself changed slowly, shaped by microbes that lived long before anything we would call familiar. We noticed that intelligence can appear as pattern and feedback, not always as planning, and that even without a brain, life can find efficient paths through a maze. We listened to the ocean as a medium of sound, where messages can travel far through water, where distance does not always mean separation. And we rested with a final gentle idea that even in stillness, life carries energy, and sometimes that energy can be measured as faint light, a whisper of chemistry quietly unfolding. All of these themes share one calm truth: life persists. Not as a loud triumph, not as a dramatic conquest, but as a steady continuation. It responds to the world. It adapts to change. It forms connections. It finds new pathways. It pauses when it must and resumes when it can. And you are part of that story, not as an observer standing outside it, but as a living pattern within it. You breathe because the planet supports breath. Your body repairs itself because repair is a theme nature repeats. Your mind shifts into sleep because sleep is one of life's most reliable strategies for resilience. Now let that truth become simpler. You do not need the full complexity of Earth's systems to rest. You only need a gentle feeling that you belong, and that belonging can be quiet. If your day has been long, let it be long. You do not need to compress it into conclusions tonight. If your mind has been busy, let it have been busy. There is no need to judge it. The mind is a living system, and living systems become tired. That is normal. That is expected. That is allowed. So as you lie here, you can imagine yourself like a seed in soil. Not because you are waiting for something dramatic to happen, but because you are allowed to be still, while hidden processes prepare you for tomorrow. You can imagine yourself like a forest at night. The surface is quiet, and the deeper systems continue their steady work. You can imagine yourself like the ocean under moonlight, wide, patient, holding movement without disturbance. If there is a thought that keeps returning, you do not need to fight it. You can treat it like a small wave that keeps reaching the shore. Each time it comes, you can greet it gently, then let it recede. You can return to your breath. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Let your exhale be a little longer than your inhale if that feels comfortable. Longer exhale, softer body. You can also use a simple image. Imagine the earth turning beneath you, steady and quiet, as if the whole planet is breathing in a rhythm too slow to notice. Imagine the magnetic field wrapping around it like a gentle blanket. Imagine the ocean releasing oxygen into the air by day and holding quiet sound by night. Imagine forests exchanging resources beneath the surface. None of this demands your attention. It simply continues, and you are free to rest within it. In a world that can feel crowded with information, it can be soothing to remember that nature does not do everything at once. It moves in cycles. It repeats patterns. It allows pauses. Night is one of those pauses. This is your pause. So if sleep is close, let it come. If sleep is still at a distance, let the distance be gentle. Rest itself is worthwhile. Quiet itself is worthwhile. Lying here without striving is already part of the process. In the final part, we will close with a soft landing, returning to the simplest sensations, breath, weight, warmth, and allowing the story to fade out completely. For now, let your body become heavy in the most comfortable way. Let your face soften. Let the world be quiet around you. You have got nothing to do but rest. Now we arrive at the quiet edge of the journey, the place where words are no longer meant to carry you forward, but to gently step aside. Everything that needed to be said has already done its work. What remains is not information but sensation. You can begin by noticing the weight of your body where it rests, the way gravity holds you without effort. The surface beneath you is steady, reliable, and unmoving. You do not need to support yourself. You are already supported. Bring your attention softly to your breathing. Not to change it, not to guide it, only to notice it. Air enters. Air leaves. Each breath arrives on its own and departs on its own. Your body remembers how to do this without instruction. You do not need to help. If you like, you can imagine each inhale as a quiet arrival and each exhale as a gentle release. With every exhale, something loosens. A little tension drains from the jaw. The shoulders sink a fraction lower. The muscles around your eyes soften. Even the space behind your thoughts grows wider. You may still hear sounds around you. Let them be distant. They do not need meaning. They do not need reaction. Like sounds carried through water, they pass without urgency. You are safe enough to ignore them. Thoughts may still appear. That is all right. The goal was never to stop thinking. The goal is simply to stop following. You can let thoughts drift by like clouds in a night sky, shapes forming and dissolving without needing names. Remember the quiet truth that has followed us throughout this journey. Life continues without strain. It adapts, it rests, it pauses, and you are allowed to do the same. Somewhere on the planet right now, forests are breathing out moisture. Oceans are moving in slow tides. Seeds are waiting beneath soil. Animals are sleeping in short cycles and long ones. Cells are repairing themselves. None of this is rushed. None of this is anxious. It unfolds at the pace it needs. You are part of that unfolding, and for this moment, your role is simply to rest. If sleep comes now, let it come naturally. If it comes later, that is fine too. Rest is not a performance. There is nothing to get right. Let the story dissolve completely. Let the images fade. Let the curiosity quiet itself. There is no more journey to take tonight. One calm orbit at a time. Now let us begin.